Well, hello and welcome to Yellow Flag FPL, the podcast where all of our opinions should be yellow flagged. My name is Harry, and today I'm not joined by our bald-headed friend. We're joined by a mutual friend of ours who is wearing his Lincoln City top just to egg me on, and that is Lee. Stephen is in a hole somewhere after getting married at the weekend and too hungover to participate, even on a Monday. Before we give you a bit more of intro of what the pod is going to be today, Lee, why don't you introduce yourself to the hundreds and thousands of fans that we have on this podcast?
So delighted to be here, mate, and thank you for having me on. And it is a shame that Stephen couldn't be here because I would love to have seen the state that he would have been in after the weekend. And I think before we go on, massive congratulations to our dear
Yeah,
friend
exactly right.
Stephen. My FPL journey. So I never played before this season. If I did dabble and I did ever play, I got very bored very quickly because I was horrendous after a few 30-point, 40-point weeks, and then was like, what's the point? Would leave it alone. And then I decided at the start of this season, because as Harry said, should I say, I am a Lincoln City
He
fan.
calls you Barrett,
So, so I am very much EFL and the Premier League. I was like, Premier League is a little bit dull and I want something to make it a little bit more interesting. And that is why I got into FPL this season. And let me tell you, fans, I have got into FPL this season, not like anything I thought I would do. I am looking at the stats, I'm looking at the form, I'm thinking about who's good, I'm thinking about my rogue shouts, I'm talking about it with my friends here and there. Who have I become? I've become Harry and Stephen, like they was a couple of years ago. So yeah, and I've just absolutely loved it, and it definitely and as what did I say? The objective was make the Premier League a little bit more interesting. Here I am watching Aston Villa, Burnley, Crystal Palace. Insert random Premier League teams, and I'm interested in the games. I'm hoping that Alex Jimenez from Bournemouth gets a haul because hopefully he might play right wing, and hopefully that means he might get either an assist or a goal. So crazy. So I think that's a great summary of my FPL experience, wouldn't you say, Harry, as well?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love that you mentioned Jimenez. No, not the one from Fulham, but the other side of Bournemouth's attack that isn't Trufflet and no one's talking about. No, it's great to have you on the FPL hype for sure because I seem to remember we would do away days together in the non-league and in lower leagues. Sorry, and we'd be getting obsessed about Mo Salah and all these players, and you'd look at us like we were fucking aliens. But now you have joined us. You have joined us in the alien community,
I was going to say
and it's great.
I'm one of the aliens now, aren't I? So
You
yeah,
are, you are,
and do you know
absolutely,
what? Do you know
absolutely.
what? I'm happy to be here, mate. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. No, that's great. And obviously, because we're moving into our first double game week of the season, woo, all very excited, although it's a bit of a shit one. Instead of going through some of the games as we normally do, what we're going to do is focus on Arsenal and Wolves. And the concept is if you were to own three Arsenal and three Wolves, I know, stay with us. Who would you go for and why? What players should we consider if you were going on an all-in strategy in this double game week? I would say don't do that. But if you were for some reason, then this is the podcast for you. And if you want some ideas about maybe if you were thinking about a cheapie from Wolves or maybe some alternative picks from Arsenal outside of the established players, this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, I need to call you Stephen then, Lee. But Lee, tell us, how has your last game week gone and where are you currently sitting in the world?
not bad. So 63 points, which is pretty good. I am on what I am defining as the alternate strategy, which is the no Haaland strategy at the moment.
Wow,
Good,
okay.
good, solid start with Bruno. I've been captaining Bruno the last couple of weeks, and he's been hauls for days since he's come back from his injury. So I brought him in last week, 20 points because of captain. This week, 20 points. And Bomo I've got in the team as well. So here I am,
Hmm.
28 points after two players, thinking, right, come on, let's break the 70 barrier. Let's even go crazy. Let's maybe even break the 80 barrier. And then it all just kind of fizzled out, and 63 points feels okay. But then you look around the league and you look around the world, and everybody's also got 60, 70 points. A few stingers in there as well. I had Zobo on the bench. That was 8 points down the
Oh,
drain. So as soon as he lined up that free kick, and maybe we do the deep dive on Man City versus Liverpool, because what a game. But as soon as he lined up
yeah.
that free kick, I went, this is in. And lo and behold, where did it go? Top bins. So not surprised there. And I also had Emmy Martinez on the bench, but I went with Donnarumma mainly because I thought if there was going to be, mainly because I thought he'd make a lot of saves. He did get the saves points. I mean, Martinez is a bit dodgy this season, but he came
Mm.
away with a couple of bonus points. He got his saves bonus as well. And so those are the two regrets. Currently in the world, I think I had a brief look before I came on. I think I'm sitting somewhere around 700,000, 750,000 in the world. So I am now pure vibes FC for the rest of the season. I'm trying to make some horrendous shouts, trying to catch wind of a few players that might catch fire towards the end of the season, and throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks effectively.
700,000. Well, I mean, I'm 1.2 million and I'm above you in the Yellow Flag FPL League. So you might need to review that. But you're very
Oh,
close. You're
I must be
very
that.
close to me. It's concerning.
That must be England. Sorry, yeah, and that's so sorry that actually. So England 700,000. I did look at the world, so I must.
Oh,
Yes, I'm definitely below. Yes, I'm definitely below you. But I've been catching, and actually,
you have.
if I go back to that FPL journey, for the first, my first team was absolute. I was looking at it this week was absolute tribe. I decided to put both João Pedro and Liam Delap in the same team. And my rationale was, well, one of them will play without then realizing that's not how you play FPL. And I also went triple Notts Forest to start the week in my first game week. So, and I also didn't realize you could change formation until week two. So I was sat with 4-4-2. But and then I finally got told by my mate Steve Acton, shout out to you, mate, and absolute god at FPL, who told me I could change formation. So it's been a slow start, and I feel like my aim is to try and catch it because you've been getting close now, and my aim is to see if I can
Mm.
overtake you, and then basically once I'm above you, it's just full rub in face mode. I think, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and for the people that are on the audio, not on the YouTube or anything, and I recommend doing that because at several points in this podcast, you will be blinded by Lee's smile as it echoes around fields of green. I can hear it when he texts me, chattering away. Oh, he's ridiculous. Most beautiful of smiles. But yeah, no, that's a good description. I think when people first start playing FPL, unless you have someone kind of telling you the little tips of the trade, you do look a bit like a bell end in the first week. But you've corrected it well, and you're now kind of coming up my rear. I was going to say. We usually wait for the weekend for that sort of thing to happen. But anyway, so I finished, and I love the no Haaland strategy as well. It's great. Up until this week, when of course he scores 11 points, but I finished on 70 points, and as you said, the average was quite high this week at 58. I captained Bruno as well. And I've also got Morgan Rogers, João Pedro, and Calvert Lewin with returns in there. The double Sunderland defence against Arsenal away was not favourable, but that's because I was hoping that Matt Sells would actually start in the what would have been a loss against Leeds. So I don't think it would have got me much more anyway. So I've now got a bit of a goalkeeper problem, particularly when you think Stefan Ortega's just signed for Forest. You would have thought he's going to play all the games now. So I've really got to ship out Sells. Um, but I want to do something exciting and fun because we are moving into a double game week, which we're going to talk about. Great transition there. But no, before we do that, let's talk about the Man City Liverpool game. We have to, right? It was the last game of the week. It was end to end. It was brilliant. I think the commentator at one point said, "Let's just have these guys play each other every week," and I was like, "That's the Super League. No one wants that." But yeah, what a game! What did you think about it? Fair result. And from an FPL perspective, what players sort of stood out for you?
Oh God, I think the words that come to my mind is inject it into my veins. That is what the Premier League is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was even at 0-0, the game was so exciting in terms of it was almost like a
Mhm.
basketball match at times, going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Um, and then when Sober's like, man, this
Yeah.
guy knows. Is Sober's got the best right foot in the Premier League at the moment? From that distance, from shooting wise, can you name anybody
Mm.
at the moment who can ping a ball like him with such accuracy and such power?
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd say like the Arsenal one, you looked at and went, "Wow, that's incredible. He's never going to do that all season again." And then he does it, and it's just like I think it's the consistency with someone's like you remember he's a midfielder, he's a CM, and he was playing at what right back, right?
Yeah.
And and he's still able to inject. some good play into the game. I'm not sure I'd go as far as say the best right foot in the league because I do think arguably you could put Wirtz in there coming forward. He's got an absolute wand as well. Dango Atara's assist for Newcastle was also gorgeous. But yeah, he's certainly up there and a really underrated player. And you think Salah's costing you 13 million and Szoboszlai's what 6.7.
Yeah.
I definitely like that as a shout. I probably prefer Enzo Fernandez over him at that price. But Liverpool's run is now looking a lot nicer. So I think Szoboszlai is a definite FPL option. And it leads me to question you, Lee. Why didn't you start him? Because he's going to play. He's going to play well. I know he got the red card at the end, and so he'll miss the Sunderland away trip. But after that, the fixtures look really nice.
Well, if we remember though, Harry, he's got a straight red card, so that means he's out for
He does,
three
yeah.
games now. So
Oh right,
that is a,
okay.
that is a shame because yeah, from an FPL perspective, why didn't I start him? Well, Harry, let me tell you, because of Liverpool's right back crisis, I knew he was going to play at right back, so I didn't think he would get. I obviously he, as you mentioned, he does get in some really good advanced positions. And I think if you're looking from a DEFCON's perspective, even from a clean sheet perspective over the next few weeks,
Mm,
I think it's a good option. He's like if he's going to tick
I
over and
think so,
get you
yeah.
5 points, 6 points, maybe here and there if he picks up the odd bonus point as well. I think and then that as at the price range he's at 6.8. I think as you said, he's a great option taking forwards. That's why I didn't start him though, because I'm thinking in the terms of the other players I had in my team. I had Enzo Fernandez going away to Wolves, and Enzo Fernandez has been in great form. Um, I had Bruno, I had Mbomo as well. Mbomo's been playing up top, so logical decision was like, let's not put Zoboslai in this week.
Yeah.
But
Well, you say that so because it's non-violent contact, it's only one game. He's back for the
oh,
Forest game.
interesting.
So
Oh, wow, that's
yeah, so
surprising.
he's and then after that he's got Forest away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Spurs at home, Brighton away, Fulham at home, Everton. I think he's got I mean his next hardest game is Chelsea at home and that's in game week 36, right? So I actually
What a run!
think he could be a lock, set and forget. 6% owned, 6.7 million. Is what is he's got the recent? He's got 8 points in this game. He's got 5 points against Newcastle, 13 against Bournemouth. Always got 0 against Burnley at home, but then none of them played well in that game. So he will have those odd games. But you're talking about a return, once in every 3 games, 2 games, and for 6.7, like I said, I think he's competing with that Enzo Fernandez price. And
Hmm.
when Chelsea's fixtures turn, which they do in two, so they got Leeds at home, Burnley at home, I would keep Enzo for that. But then I think it's a ship out for Szoboszlai. That would be a great shout. I'm actually gonna take that note. That's a piece of wisdom on this podcast, which is quite rare. So yeah, but let's move on to the topic we were going to talk about, which was obviously the Wolves and Arsenal double. Now it was something that was being suspected for a while. And so what we've done is we've picked 3 players that we think are worth a look at going forward. But before we do that, do you own any Arsenal and Wolves players, and if so, who?
Wolves players. I think by
You're
that
playing them next
reaction,
season. You will be.
come on, the Imps. I think by that reaction that I do not have any Wolves players. I think before we go into the what we're going to do with the triples around Wolves, I think the caveat to say that if you are thinking of doing a triple Wolves, my question back to you is: Are you a sicko? Because they are not a very good football team. But
Mm.
maybe if Stephen Berry was here, maybe he would be doing the triple. Maybe he'd be doing the triple Wolves. It seems like something Stephen would do because he is also part of the Vibes Academy when it comes to FPL. Arsenal, yes, I do own. I have had Gabriel and I've had Rice pretty much all season, and I have transferred one in to make sure I've actually already tripled up. But we will let when we
Ooh.
talk about the 2 triples, we can go into that person that I transferred in.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Okay, cool. Well, I have Gabriel only. I had Saka last week, or the week before, and I sold him for Bruno. And so actually looking at the ownership is quite interesting. So I imagine, we know Gabriel is the most owned defender, I think, in the game at 41%. Declan Rice, 34.3%. Saka is sub 10%. Now, I know he's injured, but that did surprise me. And then you've got, Timber, Saliba, Calafiore, Eze. Zubimendi is 3.8% owned. And things like that. So that's looking good from an Arsenal perspective. For Wolves, I obviously don't own any Wolves players, but so funny thing. Do you want to guess who their most owned player is in the game?
Who their most owned player is in the game. Now it's either going to be like the logical pick would be Matthias Mane because in a very bad season for Wolves, he has been a bright spark, and even in quite a bad Premier League team, he looks like he looks like he belongs at
Yeah.
this level. I kind of think if they can keep hold of him in the summer, he could, and he has a full season in the Championship. That's a very physical league. That's only really I think going to help him. And if then Wolves
Mhm.
can bounce back and be in the Premier League back in 2 years' time, again, obviously, I guess we're speaking as Wolves are relegated at this point. I don't see them going on some
Yeah,
crazy
yeah.
run and overhauling the teams above them. But Mane could be a special player in a few years' time if they got back to the Premier League and if he stuck around for their Championship season as well. So I'm going to go for I'll go for Mane as the most owned.
He is the most owned at 2.4%. Following up is another striker, Fraser, Nathan Fraser, who is the only 4.2 million striker in the game. So I imagine he's just bench fodder. And then you're looking at 1.3 for Gonzalez. Again, looks like bench fodder at 4.3 million midfielder. And then Pedro Lima at 0.4% defenders. Although Jose Sarr is owned at 1.1. But yeah, it's not ideal for them. But actually, interestingly enough, from a points perspective, Mane is second for strikers. So that's quite interesting. Next to Tolu, who I've never heard of. Interesting enough that Adam Armstrong, who's come in this transfer window from Southampton, he's obviously opened his account with a assist at 0.1% owned. He then got the Buenos, the pair of Buenos at the back, both sitting at 4.3 and 4.4 million and 53 points. Obviously, defenders are not something we're going to go for, but let's start there anyway. So we both own Gabriel. We've toyed with the idea of the double up for Arsenal. So let's talk about that first. Do you think it is a banker this week that we just go for the double up and just secure the points that way, or are you not too keen?
Think there's almost two questions within that, to be honest. You could is it do you double up or do you triple up? Because even if you
Yeah,
think of their
true.
fixtures, they've got Brentford, they've got Wolves, against those teams, especially as the season's gone on, those teams are really struggling to break down Gabriel and Saliba. Just
Mhm.
you could either go for that. I mean, in terms of the triple up, in terms of sort of I've gone for and who is in my team, I've gone for the what I've called the boring free options, and then I'm going to offer you free differentials as well in terms of lesser road, but I think could do a bit of damage in these next two games. The boring free is Raya, Gabriel, and Rice. I had Gabriel and Rice already. I had two free transfers. I had Donnarumma as one of my goalkeeper options. The easy pick, and that's why. And in the end, that's what I've settled on is the double Arsenal defence, and I've gone for Raya. And I guess the argument you could go back at that is he's never going to get bonus points because they're hardly facing any shots. He's never going to get the save points for the exact same reason. But the
Mhm.
counter argument to that is if they're getting clean sheets, he's going to be a shoe in for 6 points. He's going to be those steady six
Yeah.
points. Just going to keep you it's just going to keep you ticking over. Um, Let me tell you something as well. I've captained Gabrielle for this week as well.
I That is where my captaincy is at the moment. Yeah, as well. I think
And
it's a
why have
very
you got?
solid pick.
Why have you got? Yeah, why have you gone for that, Harry?
So my thought is, even if they let's say they beat Brentford 4-1 and beat Wolves 2-0, right? There's a chance that he could get one of those goals, and then he's sitting at what, 8 points from one game, maybe another nine from the other. I mean, you're talking about nearly 20 points captained. You take that with a Bruno, you take that with a Haaland. 20 points is the sort of thing a forward would get on a hat trick. I think just because defenders, when they do score and get attacking returns, they invariably are always going to do better from the bonus point perspective as well. He commands that box. He got 9 defcons, I think, in the last game. So really close. He's either getting defcons or he's scoring goals. I mean, at a bare minimum, I would expect he gets 10 points from those two games. And again, Bruno's got 10 points in this game week, and we've captained him and all been quite happy about that. So I think that's my logic. My caveat is actually taking a bit of advice from Stephen. I know this is usually a bad start to any sentence. And that is, he said that Brentford turn up against the big teams and they are set up to play dogged football against teams that need to break them down. When it comes to them breaking other teams down, he thinks they're shit, thinks they're all this sort of stuff. It's almost like the Fulham curse, if you like. But he was proved right against Newcastle. Obviously, Dango got the last minute winner. And Newcastle have been pretty good at home. So it does cause me to concern. And I think Brentford will score in that game. It's just whether I think and how my captaincy will go will be depending on whether I think he will score. I'm not captaining him in that Brentford game for the defensive returns. I'm captaining him for the attacking. But against Wolves away, who have been shocking at home. But, then again, it's a Wednesday night under the lights. Mane's going to be wanting a move away in the summer. Could he do something special? We don't know. So there are some doubts in my mind. And I think, if I did bring in a Declan Rice, for example, I would be leaning towards captaining him. But then I think that's just a defender versus attacker bias. And it would be quite fun to captain Gabriel. So I think the vibes pick is Gabriel, in my view.
The vibes pick is Gabrielle. Again, I guess the functional, maybe, if they do want to call it boring, the boring pick is maybe going for Rice. But I'm the exact same reason for you. It's that the attacking is the potential of attacking returns and
Mm.
obviously. Arsenal have been so good defensively all season that even if they got 2 clean sheets and you captain Gabrielle, that's going to be a great
24
return that you're going to
points.
get back.
Yeah.
And even against the lesser teams of the league, I think even the other week when they were playing someone in the bottom half, he's still got his defcons. He's still getting to that. He's still getting to that 10 mark at pretty much every single week. So even look at that. Let's say he got his clean sheet, his defcons, 8 points, 16 in these 8 points in both games, 16 points. Captain him. There you go. I think
Quality.
that's a pretty
Lovely.
good. That's a
Yeah.
pretty good return, and you are loving that as well. And I think going back to those boring three as the triple as well, the guaranteed starters. Like they don't have I mean, unless Gabriel has some freak injury between now and
Yeah.
Thursday, which is very unlikely. He's going to play 90 minutes. Raya's got no
Hmm.
competition. He's going to play 90 minutes. They don't have another Declan Rice in the squad. He's going to play 90 minutes. And I imagine as well what will happen is at the weekend when they've got the FA Cup game is they'll rest those three players and make sure that those players are good to go for the Premier League. So I think, yep, if you've got the option to do so, I think go for the and you are up in the upper echelons of the FPL standings. You kind of have to go for those kind of boring three because I think you're going to get some
Yeah.
really good points returns.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just going to look up who they got in the FA Cup, but I think they've got a team you've just gone to go see this weekend. I think they've got Plymouth at
I
the
think it's.
weekend.
I think you were close, but no cigar. I think they've got Wigan, so which was the game before last for us,
It's
which was
not close
also.
at all. There's like 700 miles between them. You're being very kind, but I'm not even wearing the same colour shirt.
Hey, I was talking about the closeness of fixtures to where in terms of when they played Lincoln City, which was 1 week ago. So in terms of geographical
Yeah,
distance,
yeah.
Jesus Christ, not even close. So
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, so they'll rest players against Wigan for sure. They could play the kids there easily and it'll be fine. Okay, cool. Before we go into your differentials with Arsenal, let's talk about Wolves. I think we don't need to do a differential Wolves because having a Wolves player is a differential by default. So, if gun to your head, I'm making you have triple. Which ones would you be going for and why?
you've already named him. The most owned Wolves player, I think you've got to go. I think Matthias Mane. I see, we've
Yeah,
spoken about him already, but at the 4.6 million bracket, 2.4% owned. I think that's even if he returns in that other game, which they are playing. Remind me, Harry, who are they playing in their other
they.
fixture?
We should know. I should know this, really, shouldn't I? It's Arsenal and Forest away.
Forest away. To me, I mean, to be honest,
Forest
Forest
away isn't a
are
bad fixture.
Forest away is not a bad fixture at all. They could definitely
No.
he could definitely pick up some points there. And I mean, they're not. Is he going to pick up any points in the Arsenal game? Very unlikely. But
Yeah, of course
if
not.
there's going to be one player that's going to do it, it's probably going to be him. The other two. Now I'm thinking about the games. I'm thinking about how Wolves set up. I'm surprised, as you probably have guessed, I'm not going for a defender because let's be honest, they're going to concede. And if they're going to concede, it's going to be 2 or 3 goals. So that is just an absolute non starter. But if you're thinking from a DEFCON perspective, if you're thinking, well, maybe go a little bit further forwards, who have they got in that? Who have they got in that sort of defensive midfield area? Where even they're going again, where if you think about probably the 2 games they're going to play, they're going to sit back. They are going to be mopping up a lot of balls. They might even be there might be a lot of interceptions and a lot of sort of breaks in transition in that particular game. I think the guy you might want to look for is Wolves' top point scorer, if I'm not mistaken, in FPL throughout the whole season, and that's João Gomez. And I think I think again, probably he's going to be one of the
Yeah,
players they're going to lose in the summer. He's
probably.
super physical, super athletic. He reads the game well. He breaks the game up as well. And I think in any if you are thinking of tripling up Wolves and you're trying to think of some reason why you triple up, I think you maybe go for this guy purely on the DEFCON's perspective because I think he will just mop up a lot of balls in midfield. And then the final pick at 0.2% owned. He's a big, meaty lad. He's 5.4 million. Yeah, it's Tolu Arokadare. He scored at the weekend. And I think, since coming in for Strand Larson, I mean, nothing in the stats tells you this guy could hit a barn door.
Mm.
But I've watched a couple of games, and the only thing that maybe sways me to bring him in as a triple is he's big, he's meaty, he'll bring in some players, and that brings in the opportunity either for assists or even like he did again. If he's got a little and large combination going with Adam Armstrong up front now,
Yeah,
there's the old school sort of like brings back the memories of old school Peter Crouch, Jermaine Defoe, doesn't it? And
yeah.
there's opportunities there for him to score. And I think, and then if you think of the players that have caused Gabriel and Saliba some problems over this season, I think back to, I mean, even in in the Carabao Cup game, Carling Cup, Jesus, going back a few years there, the Carabao Cup game, João Pedro used his physicality so well and almost roughed
Yeah.
up those 2 centre backs. And I think again, yeah, that's kind of the reason then that sort of swayed me for this triple pick. Is he's big, he's physical, and he has them. I mean, it's a very slim opportunity, but he's maybe using his physicality to cause them a few problems. So I'm gone. Tolo Arokadare, João Gomez, Mane. If you are a sicko, that's the triple I'd go for Wolves.
Okay, cool. And he is the most expensive player for Wolves. I'm just looking at it now. Oh no, no, sorry. Huang is the most expensive, 5.6 million. But yeah, he of course scored against Arsenal in the reverse fixture. So he has beaten Gabriel to a ball before, which I don't think many strikers can say in this Premier League. So yeah, very interesting picks there. Yeah, Gomez will go. He's a really technical footballer. I looked at it. He's got 264 DEFCONs in this season, which averages at 10 a game. Now, of course, if they concede 5, he's getting minus points, so it means fuck all. But still, he's a great player, no doubt. So my 3. So I've actually gone for the goalkeeper, Jose Sarr. Now, I didn't want to go for defenders for the same reason you didn't. But look, if they're going to get a clean sheet against Forest away, he is going to be a busy man. He is a decent goalkeeper. I don't think he's a bad goalkeeper. I don't think he's the reason why they're in such a pickle. He's 4.2 million, right? So he's cheap. And if you wanted a really cheap goalkeeper, and I like a cheap one, then definitely that. I think he's a decent one to go for. I've also gone for Gomez and Mane as my other picks, but I do like the Tolu pick is interesting, but 5.4 million. Yeah, I mean, look, we're going at this from a purely objective view of, if you were to own 3 Wolves players, which one would you own? But yeah, I think Tolu is interesting at that point. Worth noting, of course, that both Wolves and Arsenal will have a blank game week in 31, but no doubt you're probably chucking him on the bench before. But I like Mane. I like Mane. I think he's a really, really good player. I think he'll want to do something. To be honest, my thought, I don't have Declan Rice at the moment. I've only got one transfer. Sensible Harry will pick Declan Rice. But for the love of the game, I want to pick Mane. I want to do it. And I don't know what
Isn't
that
that
says
what?
about
Isn't
me.
that? Isn't that what FPL's about? Is if oh, choo choo all aboard the vibes train, like
Yeah.
that is what FPL's about, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I know.
Not that I'm trying to convince you or anything, Harry.
Yeah, yeah,
Not that I'm
okay.
trying, not that I'm trying to convince you to be a sicko, but
Yeah, I do love that. I mean, we had what do we have? The oh, who was the player played for Burnley? The Barnes train was leaving the station a few years ago. Maybe it's the Mane motorcycle. I don't know. But we'll think about one thing. I did come up with. I did think of the Danny Ings one, which was getting the dinghy, but I thought that was a bit maybe not a bit problematic at some points. But anyway.
fantastic. Absolutely love that.
I'll probably remove that from the edit. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think Mane is probably the only reasonably sensible option. But we've given you some thoughts there. I think it's interesting. If Huang was fit, I would be tempted with that. He is expensive, but he is probably the most proven Premier League player, and he plays midfield as well. Belregard had a bit of a run, but now he's not really starting. And then the rest of the players you won't even consider. Matt Doherty, just no, absolutely not. Mosquera was popular as well. Both Buenos are top of the points. All the rest of it, but I think their back line has scored more own goals than actual attacking returns. So it's just a no for me for any of those defenders. But I think Jose Sá, purely on the basis he'd be really busy. And you never know. Arsenal might rest some players against them in the midweek fixture, although maybe they can't afford to now, given that Man City seem to be getting their shit together. But we'll see. Anything else on Wolves before we go to your differentials? Go to safer waters, the differentials of Arsenal.
The differential of Arsenal. Let's get into it because I think this is
Go
where
for it.
if you're in a chasing pack or you are complete vibes
Mm,
FC, this is where you could have a little bit of fun. And I've gone against my whole ethos of vibes by going for the boring free. But if you've got the free transfers, I mean, I've gone for that. But my differentials for Arsenal, you've already mentioned him at 3.8%, 5.2 million, Zubimendi. He just keeps popping up with the
mm.
odd goal every now and again, doesn't he?
Yes.
Which is the and it popped up with a goal this weekend. And then actually, I think if you were looking at this very objectively in terms of that question I asked earlier about Arsenal is who's a guaranteed starter, who's going to guarantee to get the minutes? Well, again, like what I mentioned about Rice, they don't have another Zubimendi option. So Zubimendi is
Yeah.
pretty much going to be playing every single Premier League game, every single Champions League game. And they'll probably rest.
Mm.
And what you'd imagine is they'd probably makeshift someone and rest him for the Wigan game potentially. But I think he's a solid differential. He seems like he'll be, again. He just seems to pop up with some good hauls, sort of every other week, really. Whether it's DefCon points, whether it's the odd goal. So definitely a consideration. And then I think the other two is I'm actually looking at the wingers, Harry. I'm looking at Trossard at 1.5% owned. A little expensive at 6.8. There is also the
Mm.
caveat that there's a tiny injury against him at the moment,
Yeah.
75, so
Yeah.
75% a chance of playing. But he seems to have grabbed the shirt. He seems to have taken that left wing berth, and he feels, for me, or the way I look at it at the moment, is Arteta sees him as
Mm.
almost the number one left winger. It seems like Martinelli is that rotation option. He's not getting, he's kind of coming on as the finisher. Probably the only other consideration is why it is a differential, why it would be a gamble for Trossard, is he could come off at 55, he could come off for 70, and
Yeah,
he's
that's true.
and
Yeah.
as well. So, but his output, but in these two games, and against sometimes, and usually against teams that are a little bit lower down the table, he tends to do quite well. He tends to perform in these games rather in the bigger games. So I think Trossard, even if it's a 1 week pick, even if you bring him in for 1 week and then you ship him back out again, he could be a good one. But because of Saka's absence, and we presume he's going to be out for these next two games as well, at 1.3%, again a little bit expensive for someone who doesn't play a lot though. But it could be just that
Mm.
1 week rotation option. 6.8 million, Madueke, and Madueke has
Yeah.
looked not too bad. He looks
Mhm.
okay, and dare I say it, that with Madueke in the team, you see it a lot. Has it helped Gyökeres a bit more as well in terms of
Mhm.
Gyökeres seems to have he was the other consideration as well, but I thought actually a bit more if I'm going for the vibes element, I'm going to go for two wingers, and especially with their percentage owned so low. But Gyökeres seems to be getting a bit more attuned. I don't know if that's around the rest of the team, but the sort of the
Yeah.
correlation that you tend to see. So when Saka's in the team, he's passing up those opportunities to give the ball to Gyökeres when he's in those positions, when he's in a good goal scoring position. And I don't know. I think Madueke's looked decent. He's definitely looked energized by his Arsenal move. I think all those boo boys at the start of the season that were decrying the money paid for Madueke and saying Madueke out, I feel like that has gone away by his kind of level of a performance. A, when he's been rotated in, and B now and B now that he's covering the injured Saka. So I don't think long term. Don't think any of those, the last two that I mentioned, are long term pits. But if you're just bringing them in for this triple week and a little bit of a punt in terms of just by the vibes, just by the general feeling I've got about them as well, I think those are both worth a punt. But maybe more long term, and actually rather than just this week, a bit longer term, at his price point at 5.2, Zubimendi, it could be a great differential for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think one thing to mention as well about his positioning, it really does depend on if Odegaard's on the pitch. If Odegaard's not on the pitch, he takes a lot more ownership of the ball, and so that means I think he's guaranteed to get defcons when Odegaard is not on the pitch. And also with Rice being the slightly boring pick, when Odegaard is on the pitch as well, Rice goes forward a bit further as well. So I think it's not just about those players individually. I think it's about thinking about who else is alongside them and who's playing well, who's playing those balls. So yeah, Zubimendi, I really like him as a pick. 5.2 million, 3.8% owned. He could be an absolute bargain for the rest of the season. He does take up an Arsenal spot, that's true, but you could play him week in, week out. He's almost like an Elliot Anderson, I would say, but cheaper, shockingly. You could start him and play him every week, and he's going to tick along at 4, 4, 2, 10, whatever. Like, but he got I think in the Bournemouth game, he got something like 22 defcons. So like he's a monster for those sorts of appearances. I do like the idea of Gyökeres, but he didn't start against Sunderland. Jesus started ahead of him, even though Stephen on this podcast said no, Gyökeres is going to start every game. Kai Havertz has started playing a bit more as well. He's back in the team. He's now playing in the midfield, which I like. But he's a bit expensive. He's 7.3 million, but he would be in a rogue category for me. Madueke, I had him written down as well. I think, Saka, they're going to save him for that Tottenham game. Obviously, it's the North London derby after the Wolves game. They're going to save him for that game. And I think Madueke can play his socks off for those two games, and then you're shipping him out probably. Eze, he's been missing for a while. So if you wanted to take that punt, I don't mind it. But again, I think it's just too much risk. I mean, he played 23 minutes against Sunderland, 9 against Leeds, 32 against Man United, 11 against Forest, 12 against Liverpool. I mean, he's not had a start since Wolves, and he came off at 56. So he would be at the roguer end for me. But I also think it's worth talking about Hippocampe. So he's played a bit. Obviously, he's come in and out of the team with injuries, but I could see him playing maybe 100 minutes across the next two games, probably against Wolves, but probably doesn't start against Brentford.
Any problem? I
So I
guess the
like
only
those
problem with
picks.
I think the only problem with Hincapié though is he's probably going to go out a left back. And
Yeah,
Do you not see Calafiore starting those two games? Maybe the way I would look at it is if they've got Wigan either at home or away. I can't remember where they are in that sense. But if they've got Wigan, they could do almost do a full rotation. I
yeah,
think the
yeah.
good
He
thing
could
about
start.
Hincapié
Yeah,
I had Nkapie when Gabriel was out for those sort of 8 to 10 weeks earlier in the season, and he's great. He's an absolute DefCon machine, and he's a great defender amongst a lot of great defenders as well. And I guess that goes back to the question I asked: is you could like all these like is really do you actually just did you do double up? Did you actually just go fully in and triple up on the Arsenal defense
mm.
and put the faith where they are best, which is in their defense?
Yeah. I'm never a big fan of doubling up in general. So tripling up makes me weak at the knees. So I've never been a big fan of it. I could see myself doing that if I had loads of transfers to repair that for future weeks. Because I think, look, the North London derby is going to be horrible for me for obvious reasons. We probably will lose. I'll have to listen to Stephen chuttering on about how they're going to win the league. In fact, I'm going to have to go into hiding when Arsenal do win the league for at least a month or two. But I do think in that game we will score. So if I'm coming out of this double game week, I'm going to want to ship out those defenders, or at least bench them. In which case, I'm going to have a good bench to do so. But look, you take a braver man than me, someone with bigger cojones than me, to do the triple, and maybe slightly bigger still, which is not hard, to go for the double. But if I was going to go for the double, I would go for Gabriel and Timber, because I agree with you what you're saying with Raya. Like, he's going to get 12 points across these two fixtures, but if he gets one concession, one goal, like Thiago pops up at the back post, they get a dodgy pen, like it kind of defeats the point, I think, to a certain extent. So I'd rather have Timber with the chances of, that having Timber with the chance of a greater attacking return. Because he obviously, we all remember that 24-point haul he got against Leeds, second game of the season. But yeah, I would much rather go for, like, out as a 3, Gabriel. Rice is the boring pick, but if you want something fun and exciting, Zubimendi / Madueke, and then probably finishing off with Havertz over Gyökeres. Because I agree with you, Madueke plays better with Gyökeres, but if Gyökeres isn't playing, right, Havertz isn't making those same sorts of runs. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not on the Gyökeres train. I mean, 8.7 million. It's him or Ekitike. And I'd rather Ekitike, who's Sunderland away. I'd rather Ekitike in one fixture, Sunderland away.
Yeah, I think there's that. I mean, ultimately when I was looking at the differential options and I was thinking of Gyökeres, and it was the price point. I just think like at the moment he's not doing enough to justify that price tag. If he now watch him explode for the rest of the season and make us look like absolute fools. But I'll happily eat my hat if he does. But it doesn't feel like he's going to catch fire anytime soon. And yeah, you just brought the perfect comparison. If you're looking at someone else at that price point, Ekitike, who just looks like he is a guaranteed starter. He just looks dangerous every single game he plays as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the comparisons you've got to do. Okay, cool. Well, look, that's been some good analysis. It's something we're not used to on this podcast. But Stephen will be back next week, hopefully alive after his party celebrations. We won't do our bankers, middling and rogue, because we've basically given you a load of rogue shouts by recommending anyone for Wolves. And some middling shouts on the rest of Arsenal. So, but before we do wrap it up, I was going to ask you about a shock result for the week. So, looking at the fixtures ahead, can you give me? I've got a shock of the week if you need time to do a little think about it. But what would you say is your shock for the week?
Well, I think I've got it already, and I don't know if it would even be that much of a shock, but I think we all kind of want it to happen, for a certain someone's haircut not to happen, and I think,
Yes.
and yeah, he's clapping. He knows. He knows. I think shock of the week could be West Ham. They've just clicked, haven't they? At the moment, they've got.
Yeah.
I mean, they've. I mean, I was gonna give you my rest of the season banker middling rogue,
Okay. Okay. I
as
was not
something of
expecting that,
that.
but go on then.
And somebody I wrote down in the rogue section was Crescenzo Somerville. I thought even before he's really caught fire last fight. I mean, he's got holes in the last 5 games. I even thought before that he looked just a player. He's definitely a confidence player. Just looked a bit devoid of
Sure.
confidence, but it
Yeah.
looked like if Nuno could get it right and get them going in the right direction, that he would certainly have. He certainly has all the skills. He certainly has all the attributes to be a really good Premier League player. And as someone at 5.6 mil, 1.9 owned, he's a pretty good differential as well. And if he's going to continue this form, but that definitely would be my shock result is, and I think I think there's two caveats to this. We obviously kind of want to see this, don't we? Because we want to see
Yeah.
this because we want the hair to keep growing. We want that streak to keep going. On the other hand, we kind of don't want to see it going because we want Carrick to get the job so that we're back here in 18 months when United are in 17th place.
Exactly. Like, you're right, because we know they're in the same cycle. I said this in the last pod. Like, it's now time to invest in Man United players because they're on this streak. Like, guarantee come December we'll be talking about targeting them, especially when they play at home. Like, it's just they're just so obviously in that streak. I think the difference, and I said this on the last pod, the difference is the last minute winners, the decisions going their way. That's something that didn't happen under the previous iterations of these like various revivals that they've had, and they're not signing stupidly expensive players for systems that they're going to abandon in 18 months time. So they're not doing those things. If they persist with not doing that, if they made like a couple of young signings from the Portuguese or the French or whatever league, do some smart business in the summer, maybe they will buck that trend. But yes, it would be great to see them lose at West Ham. Obviously, as a Tottenham fan, I want West Ham to get relegated, so I'd be happy if they didn't. But yeah, that was one I did write down. Before you reveal your bankers middling a rogue for the season, I didn't expect you to do that, so excellent. But my rogue shout is, and I'm going to Cats and Gabrielle, but it is Brentford to beat Arsenal at home. Now, okay, so I hate taking advice from Stephen because every time I do, it blows up in my face. But when I don't listen to him, it works. It's really annoying. Brentford will turn up for that game. And I remember, I'm not sure if you remember, it was a couple of seasons ago, the first game of the Premier League was Brentford at home to Arsenal. And they won 2-0. And it was just an electric atmosphere at Brentford Stadium. And they're good fans, Brentford. It's a Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And this is what swung it for me. Thursday night, 8 o'clock. They're going to be right up for that game, right? Look, we know Arsenal are a crazy good team. Maybe they take a bit of a back seat here and there. But with Man City winning that game at Anfield, and they play on Wednesday at Fulham at home, and let's say they spank Fulham like 5-0, Arsenal are going to be thinking goal difference is going to matter. So they might go for it a bit more. That will leave them a bit more exposed. As we know, Brentford are good at the lump it forward strategy. Thiago needs to be unbelievable. Dango's come back into the team and had an unbelievable return from the AFCON nations. I actually think he's an option. 6.1 million is not bad. Even though last pod I said he wasn't an option, but we'll ignore that. This is what this pod's like, flip flopping everywhere. But yeah, so that's my shock result is Brentford to get the win.
Don't hate it. Don't hate it whatsoever. And I think the other consideration around that fixture as well, whilst you were speaking, that popped into my mind is, Arsenal loved, again, obviously, it's obviously something that everyone's throwing at Arsenal at the moment, steamrolling people through set pieces. They ain't going to steamroll us, Brentford, because Brentford are pretty much built in that same ilk in terms of the way they set up for their set pieces, the way they defend their set pieces as well. They've got some good defenders in there. They got some big defenders in there. And actually, I think as we spoke about earlier as well, they're just on the transitions. If they're gonna if there's a team that's gonna hurt you there's a team that's going to hurt you in the Premier League at the moment, it's going to be Brentford on that transition, as they so very adeptly proved at the weekend against Newcastle, who are usually pretty solid at home as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So you've sent your rogue shout for the rest of the season into form of Somerville. Go on, you're rubbing your hands with glee. Tell us, what are your bankers and middling? I'm fascinated.
I'm going to give you obviously I couldn't really decide, so I've given a few options on middling and rogue that I'll also throw into the mix. But I think the bank for the rest of the season, Bruno Fernandes. Past 5 weeks, 10, 10, 5, 10, 7 since he's come back from injury. He's just, and the thing about Manchester United, I think that we probably haven't mentioned as well, is they are just going to be so well rested. They are not there. I mean, they're already out. Yeah, they're already out. The cups.
No European football. Yeah,
no European football. They're gonna they basically can just keep churning out that same 11, and almost kind of what we were saying is build that consistency, build that rhythm in that team. And I unfortunately can see them getting top four because of their schedule is so much lighter than the teams around them. And part of me absolutely hates that because God, I do not like Manchester United. But part of me, as we've already discussed, kind of wants to see it because it would be great if Carrick got at the wheel and then in 18 months to 2 years time, we're back all laughing at them again. So I think but no, Branca, definitely Bruno F. I think it's just a really solid pick. Two middling then I've got for you for the rest of the season. seems to be the guy that if you are going to go for a Newcastle player, everything seems to go through him. He's added goals this year into on top of his sort of defensive returns as well. 7 million at only 12.5%, which maybe just because of his latest injury is why that's a little bit low. But Bruno Guimaraes, I think, would be a really
Another
solid
Bruno.
pick. Another
Double
Bruno,
Bruno.
yeah. Yeah, do you see where it's going for Rogue? I'm joking. But it just everything seems to go through him as well. Newcastle only seem to play well when Bruno is on the pitch as well. I think he's key to them being back. I think he's key to them snapping out of form. And yes, they're in bad form at the moment, but I mean, if I'm a Newcastle fan, I've got total faith in Eddie Howe that he's gonna turn it around and he's gonna get that team performing. Maybe once their schedule gets a little bit lighter, when they inevitably get knocked out at the last 16 quarterfinals, however far they make it in the Champions League, maybe a strong run at the end, and that's why I think having someone like Bruno in the team when they aren't having to rotate as much, haven't got a heavy schedule. I think is a really solid pick, and especially if he stays around 12.5%, that's not a bad differential if you're in the upper echelons and you need a good player that's also a little bit of a differential. But someone who's just come back in the middling as well, at 5.8 million, he's a defender, 7.1 owned. I had him this week, brought him back in, got me a nice cheeky 5 points. But I don't really have him from a defensive point of view. I have him from a attacking point of view, and there's Daniel Munoz. I imagine that will absolutely
Yeah.
rocket up in the next few weeks in terms of his owned. It feels like the result of the weekend for Palace was big for them in terms of
Yeah.
changing the course of their season. At one point, I was even thinking, Jesus, no Palace players for the rest of the season. They could honestly get sucked into this battle. But maybe those few signings that they got over the January window might just steady them out.
Mhm.
Let's be honest, they're probably going to finish 12th. But if they could finish 12th and get the Conference League, and it's not in the end for Palace for what they are, it's not a bad season. And I think integral to that,
Yeah.
he kind of proved when he was out for those few weeks that the Palace way of playing doesn't really work without Munoz and his athleticism and his physicality. So he's my other middling shout. And then I've got Free Rogue. I've obviously already mentioned one, Crescencio Somerville. And I can't believe this guy isn't more owned. After watching Everton, weirdly a lot this season on MNF and on Sundays as well. 4.9 million, 2.6% owned. And what I saw from every single time I've watched Everton, all the attacking play goes through this guy. He gets assists. He started popping up with some goals. I think his injury was at a really bad time for him because I think I brought him into the team. He hauled me something like 16 points, got injured
Yeah.
against Chelsea, then was out. And that's Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. And I think he looks, I think he, in the system with David Moyes and the way they're playing, earlier in the season had Grealish, and I was watching these games hoping that Grealish would do something, and he was just sort of hanging out on wide left, waiting for the ball as a bit of an outlet option. And the more I watched the games, I was like, man, actually, the choice really is Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. He's picking up the ball
Mhm.
deep in those areas in the penalty box where you want him as well. I think just a really solid player. 4.9 million as well. I think that's a great
Yes.
price
Yeah.
for
Because
him.
he was 5.1 at one point, and loads of people owned him and then
Yeah.
binned him off. But yeah, he's a really class player.
And then I've got one more for you, and this is super rogue because he's only just come into the league. But if you've seen any highlights of this guy playing in Brazil, um,
I think I know who you're
Jesus,
talking about.
Jesus Christ, this guy could be. I mean, Bournemouth don't ever rarely get it wrong, do they, with their recruitment?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm,
He's caught
yeah,
fire as well.
I mean, he's got. See, I mean, if you saw his goal at the weekend as well, I mean, James Hill with the easiest assist for on FPL this weekend as well. But at
Mm.
5.5, 0.2% owned, I feel that's going to go up quite rapid. I think he's going to get a lot of game time. He has annoyingly kiboshed my plans for Alex Jimenez. I mentioned him earlier as a rogue shout because I have him on my bench and I picked him because I noticed he was playing right wing and I went, aha, that's fantastic. In comes this guy, Ryan. He's coming from Vasco da Gama. Jesus, this guy scored a lot of goals in Brazil. He's the guy who picked it up from near the halfway line, absolutely danced through Villa before popping it in the back of the net. Jesus Christ almighty. What a player. I think he could be. I think if you've seen any, I think just as a pure pun, he's going to get a lot of game time. He's obviously going to get a lot of chance to develop in that Bournemouth team. I think he's a fun option. I think he could be a really, and obviously at point two, massive differential as well.
Yeah, because he's come in with a goal and an assist in his first two games. Like, and he, because I said this to Stephen on the pod, like when they sold Semenyo, I was like, there's no way they don't buy another player in the window. But yeah, he looks very good. And his next couple of fixtures, he's got Everton away, okay, difficult. But then he's got West Ham away, Sunderland at home, Brentford at home, Burnley away, Man United at home. It's not bad fixtures considering you probably will be wildcarding around that 30 period when he runs into a bit more trickier spots. But yeah, 9 points away at Villa. It's really not bad.
It's
And yeah,
not bad at all.
On
It's
Newcastle
not.
as well. Dr. Tottenham will see them on Tuesday, so they'll sort out their away form. No worries at all. The Doctor will see you now, honestly. But yeah, I think Riley's a very solid pick, and actually, I've just drafted it now. I could do a double switch, but I probably would have to take a -4 for it. Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. The romance of it all
Can you
would be
take a
great.
-4 in your position though, Barry?
I don't know. I think probably I'm going to stick to my plan because I've got two Fulham midfielders of Wilson and King. King just being bench fodder, so I can actually take King up to Declan Rice because I've sold Saka. So and then I would have the double, and that'd be fine. But then Wilson is not really putting in the performances, although he's got Tottenham in a few weeks, so no doubt he will then. And then he runs into a nice fixture run in 28 to 29, yeah. But I think I could probably sell him to Ryland for next week when he's got West Ham away, and that would be quite a nice sneaky little transfer. But yeah, perfectly reasonable shouts there, mate, and much more analysis and also correct player pronunciation, which is again something alien to this podcast. Even the first names. It's so nice to talk to someone who knows how to pronounce these things because I don't either. That's no slight on Steve. You can be our translator, but yes. We've gone on a bit now, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you for joining us, mate. Anything else? Any other tips and advice you want to give to our dear listeners and viewers, who are also, no doubt, members of the Vibes Academy?
If they
Before
are
for the rest of the
I hope
season.
they are member. Yeah, they've got to be. If you're members of, if you're in the lower echelons of the game like me, there's only one way you should be playing the game from here on in, and that is pure vibes. That is triple captaining Gabrielle on a completely random, nonsensical week. That is playing a free hit on a completely nonsensical week, and it is also bench boosting on a completely nonsensical week. And that is what I'll leave you with.
Fantastic advice. Well, thank you very much, Lee, for joining us. It's been a thoroughly enjoyable pod. Game week is closing tomorrow, so listeners, get your moves in done quickly. And yeah, good luck for the rest of the season, Lee. No doubt I'll be hearing you when you overtake me. But yes, thank you for listening and watching, and thank you to Rita for helping us with the editing and publishing. We've been Yellow Flag FPL. Thank you, and have a great week.